Scott and Strauss outline 5 reasons why intimate partner violence is perceived as asymmetrical, which is primarily male on female. First, for the longest time, there was widespread acceptance of male power and dominance. Up to the 19th century, husbands were essentially allowed to severely punish quote-unquote misbehaving wives. The efforts to reverse the harmful effects of the cultural norm of punishing wives have been the foundation of most intimate partner violence research. Women empowerment has largely been presented as the solution to countering male control in intimate partner relationships. The equal rates of violence presented in this video and the contribution of empowerment on female aggression provides room for extensive research. Second, gender stereotypes hinder the perception of women as aggressors in intimate partner violence situations because they are perceived to be the gentler sex. White and Dutton note that the socio-political perspective of intimate partner violence informs its presentation as predominantly male against female. Thus, male violence is presented as common in reinforcing the perception of society as patriarchal. Female violence is constantly suppressed as retaliatory and expression of women's emancipation. A more accurate picture of intimate partner violence, White and Dutton argue, should include all the relevant aspects of violence, such as coercion and psychological issues. Media distortions are also common in promoting the gender stereotypes. Mainstream media outlets often rely on information from crime studies and statistics in claiming to paint an accurate picture of domestic violence. Besides, most intimate partner violence discussions on mainstream media are largely dominated by women as hosts or panelists, probably in pursuit for political correctness. Combining a few statistics from crime studies and some anecdotes here and there, then we have whatever is known as the true picture of domestic violence. Third, intimate partner violence was first highlighted by the feminist movement that focused on battered women. The movement is credited for changing law enforcement strategies to increase the focus on domestic violence and the establishment of the relevant social institutions. The social institutions include gender violence recovery shelters exclusively housing women and treatment programs that exclusively focus on men. The Duluth model is central to domestic violence treatment programs widely used by governments, international organizations, and related agencies. The model was developed by feminist Ellen Pence, May her soul rest well, in Duluth, Minnesota to tackle domestic violence against women. The model is used across all the 50 American states, and 17 countries that have formally endorsed it. However, in 1999, Pence, before her passing, again may her soul rest well, noted, in what is termed as an absolute show of courage and accountability, as documented by Brenda Russell, and I quote, "By determining that need or desire for power was the motivating force behind bettering, we created a conceptual framework that, in fact, did not fit the lived experience of many of the men and women we were working with. The DAPE staff remain undaunted by the difference in our theory and the actual experiences of those we were working with. It was the cases themselves that created the chink in each of our theoretical suits of armor." Speaking for myself, I found that many of the men I interviewed did not seem to articulate a desire for power over their partner. Although I relentlessly took every opportunity to point out to men in the groups that they were so motivated and merely in denial, the fact that few men ever articulated such a desire went unnoticed by me and many of my co-workers. Eventually, we realized that we were finding what we had already predetermined to find. Fourth, men are known to be more aggressive than women as they dominate criminal justice systems, especially violent crime, with a ratio as high as 10-1. Men also dominate the number of intimate partner violence cases recorded to law enforcement. Data from law enforcement and other agencies is commonly used in evidence presenting intimate partner violence as asymmetrical. Strauss' publication of 1999 uncovered that booking of men for intimate partner violence in law enforcement is not an indication of disproportional perpetration of violence, but the fact that men are always reluctant to involve law enforcement. Women present greater fears for safety, and there is greater probability of injury for attacks perpetrated by men. The fact that law enforcement agencies are involved in less than 10% of intimate partner violence incidences and that they are summoned by women in most cases is not a representation of the actual state of intimate partner violence. Fifth, the fact that women are more likely to suffer injury in instances of intimate partner violence raises the concern and empathy for female victims, with the public and the press almost focusing exclusively on male perpetrated violence. However, Martin, in describing the incidents and characteristics of dual arrests following implementation of the relevant policies, uncovered that 40% of arrested women were victims in previous incidents. Alcohol and substance abuse was common in violent situations, there was differential use of violence in varying situations, and some police departments over-enforced domestic violence policies. Feder and Henning, in examining dually arrested females in domestic violence cases, revealed that arrested couples, both perpetrators and victims, had ample contact with criminal justice. Male perpetrated violence was more severe, and men had richer histories of violence and antisocial lifestyles. It is worth noting that most of information on gender symmetry in the perpetration of domestic violence comes from family violence population surveys that use the conflict tactics scale, or some form of it, which was developed by Strauss. Strauss presents the presence of gender symmetry in the perpetration of intimate partner violence. Some of the heaviest critics of the scale argue that it does not examine the context of violence and the severity of outcomes. However, those who critic the use of the scale in determining the nature of intimate partner violence rely agency data in proving asymmetry in domestic violence. The data is collected from police reports, courts, hospitals, and gender violence recovery centers. Agency data is heavily biased primarily for two reasons outlined by Van Duyten and colleagues. First, women are more likely to get warnings or have their cases involving violence be dismissed. Second, male victims of violence are less likely to involve authorities. Thus, the information gathered from agency data presents women as the victims and men as the perpetrators. However, Strauss argues that those promoting gender asymmetry in domestic violence focus on consequences, while the information on symmetry focuses on perpetration.